Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They are kicking off another week of action by giving all new customers a can't-miss offer right now. If you use the code PHNX and bet just $1 on any football game this week, you'll receive $150 in free bets instantly. Johnny, Frank, guys, It is officially Urban Meyer versus Kliff Kingsbury week. According to Kingsbury, two wildly successful college coaches going head-to-head, which was a pretty funny moment.
He said successful? Two successful head coaches?
He was
college coaches?
Correct. He was. So Kliff Kingsbury's thing is to be as self-deprecating as he possibly can. So it was funny. It was really funny. Somebody was asking a question about Urban, and he was like, "You mean two wildly successful college coaches?" Yeah.
Self-awareness like that, you cannot buy. That's fantastic.
I agree.
That's
loved it. But with that being said, you could certainly draw some parallels to the situation that Jacksonville is in right now, to the situation the Cardinals were in back in 2019. Kliff Kingsbury coming into the league, Kyler Murray, a rookie quarterback, and Trevor Lawrence, a rookie quarterback, Urban Meyer, coming into the league as a head coach in the NFL for the first time.
Yeah, it's interesting. When the Cardinals hired Kingsbury, a ton of pushback, right? And then I don't think Kyler Murray's here if Kliff Kingsbury is not the head coach. So knock Kliff all you want, and they're off to a good start this year. I do think that whomever else they would have hired, they would have talked themselves into Josh Rosen. So if we can thank Kliff for anything, it's that Kyler Murray is here. I also think that their situation was substantially harder than what Urban and Trevor face in Jacksonville. The AFC South is hot garbage. It's a terrible division. We saw it 2 weeks ago. Tennessee's like the favorite. Indianapolis is 0-2. And, the Jacksonville Jaguars are really not competitive. That first year with Kliff and Kyler, they exceeded their over-under win totals via Vegas. They were competitive in almost every game. They won 5 games. They only lost 10. They had that tie to open the season. And a lot of people thought, rightfully so, the team was trending up. And for the most part, the talent they had on that team was the same talent the year before when they had the first overall pick. And really all that changed was Kliff and Kyler. Urban and Trevor don't even look the part so far. And I think that that's what is frustrating, because Kliff and Kyler, say what you want about Kliff, they made it look much more seamless when he came in the NFL. It has been ugly so far in Jacksonville, and I think it's only going to get worse on Sunday.
I like what I see. I like the conversation you just stated in regards to how if Kyler wasn't in that position, or if we didn't sign Kliff, we probably wouldn't have kept Kyler. Mm-hmm. I like that conversation, because I think that is absolutely true. I think Steve Keim got a pass tremendously that offseason, some things that happened personally, and then that was kind of the wash effect of going out and getting the new up-and-coming mind of an offensive mind of a coach in Kliff Kingsbury, who hadn't been successful in college, but yet he had coached Johnny Manziel. He had already dealt with Kyler for a little bit. So in that conversation, that was a good pick and a good fit coming to the Arizona Cardinals. But what I do think is that Jacksonville and that conversation, what Kliff and what they had over there, I think the back end is still to be determined what Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer is going to bring to the table today.
I agree. And honestly, they still face, regardless of how they stack up against other teams in their division, they still face some of the same growing pains. And I don't ever remember having the thought of, oh, wow, I'm shocked at how well Kingsbury and Kyler are doing. They had a lot of growing pains, so much so that heading into year 3, we're talking about Kliff on the hot seat and things like that. And through 2 weeks now, obviously don't have their stuff together in Jacksonville, but I think there's still enough room for growth and give it some time to see where it goes.
Yeah, I will give grace, absolutely. I just think that you can't tell the story of Kliff Kingsbury's Cardinals, however it ends, if it ends this year and half a decade from now, without talking about the NFC West as a whole and the coaches in the division, all 3 of which have been to Super Bowls, one of which has won a Super Bowl in Pete Carroll, and he's probably going to the Hall of Fame. And then you look at the AFC South, and you could make an argument that Houston, I know they're 1-1 right now, they're more dysfunctional and in a further rebuild than Jacksonville.
Absolutely.
Indianapolis, I think, is in QB purgatory, and when Trevor does figure it out,
good point,
they'll be a better team just by default. And then Tennessee, I think they're limited with their coordinators, and we'll see what happens with Tannehill and that kind of thing. But by the end of the year, like, it could be conceivable, assuming Deshaun Watson is done, that Trevor's the best quarterback in the division. Kyler entered the division with Russell Wilson at the peak of his powers, right?
Yep.
You know, the boy genius, Sean McVay, and then, you know, everything that's going on with Kyle Shanahan, and they've rebounded. So, and they went to the Super Bowl that year in 2019. So this mirrors to me, they have a situation like when Bruce Arians and Andrew Luck took over the Colts that first year and they made a run to the playoffs. I thought that they could do that, Trevor and Urban this year. They have looked too far the other way, and Urban in particular looks unprepared.
I also, and just to compare them again, I mean, I know just wildly different situations, but I don't ever remember there being like this huge question about whether or not players were getting along with Kliff. And I think maybe some from the outsider's perspective, some of the things that they were doing, fans had their own opinions of, oh, well, that's not going to garner respect, or, you know, those kinds of things. But I don't ever remember hearing like, oh yeah, the players just don't like him. And again, I'm not in Jacksonville, but I have heard stories of Urban just not coaching in a way that players are responding well to in the National Football League.
In the NFL, there is a tremendous difference on what they do in regards to how we receive a college coach to a coach that has already been proven in NFL. A college coach coming in, you typically think he's going to be rah, 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 shish, boom, bah, because he spent majority of his lifetime coaching on a college level, trying to recruit high school 17, 18-year-old men
Right.
to come play at a program. And I'm trying to get you away from 5 to 25 other programs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a sales pitch salesman the whole way. I am. Hey, son, look, we got this. We got that at Ohio State. We're doing this. We're doing that. I can make you this. As soon as this kid leaves, so he's selling. In NFL, once you get a contract, you're not selling me on coming to your team. I'm already here. I either was drafted or I signed as a free agent through my agent, and we agreed on a term money-wise.
And I'm Frank Sanders, and I'm a grown-ass man, and I might make more money than you.
100%. And I might be older than you.
Right.
Because when Kliff came in, there was probably 12 guys on the team that was older than him. And I think that is a conversation where when you see things like that, you start finding out that coaching in college is rah, rah, rah. In the NFL, I don't trust you, coach. I trust my teammate.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust if you got a game plan that needs to be executed on Sunday, I'm gonna say it like it's supposed to be said. Don't bitch up when we got competition. Don't be that dude. You come from college. This is not that moment. These guys on the other side are really playing real ball. And right now, my right tackle needs help. If you're not trying to figure out how to help my right tackle, now you acting like the guy I don't need. And that will cause a trust issue. And so that's when you see if you have a veteran quarterback. Fortunately for Kliff, he came in, and fortunately for Urban, they got rookie quarterbacks. So at that same time, you're learning like I'm learning. We're figuring this out the same way. And I think that is a challenge. And I think Urban has that, and he has to keep saying, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm capable of. I'm just having to learn what it feels like to coach a guy that's got $15 million.
Well,
and what it feels like to talk to another guy that's worth $7 million, and I'm only worth $3 million.
Chierstin, to your point, I've already heard stories about Urban at camp with a megaphone, just like he did at Ohio State, and like that's not
guys
like college football.
Like, hold up, calm down, bro.
Whereas Kliff, I think people were concerned with the opposite, like he'd be too lax. Like we've talked about, like the cell phone breaks, and people made fun of him for that. What I will say on behalf of Kliff Kingsbury is that unlike Urban Meyer, who had 5-star recruits every which way, and you can, push back on Kliff, well, why didn't you have those players at Texas Tech? Kliff Kingsbury would not have been able to get a DeAndre Hopkins at Texas Tech. Or, he had Patrick Mahomes, but for the most part, a Kyler Murray, these elite playmakers, right? A Rondell Moore would not have gone to Texas Tech. So I think maybe Kliff can do more with less compared to Urban Meyer.
You might have a point. I did think it was interesting that Vic Fangio came out today and said that Urban made a comment to him saying every week's like playing Alabama in the NFL, which I thought was, at first I thought was funny, but then I was like, would you really want, like, you in the NFL, like if you were on the Jaguars, like would you really want your head coach like yeah, no crap, this is whole different, this is professional.
That's
like,
his only
football.
reference, but that's his only reference.
I know.
Because
I thought it was
he knows that when you're at Ohio State or you're at Alabama, and most universities, there is 107, 110 Division I schools. More than likely, the top 20 that's consistently the top 20, they will only play on their schedule maybe 3 teams that they really feel they had to work to win that week.
That's right.
The other 8 games, they can put second string and third string in by the halftime. And Ohio State has been the privilege of that.
Especially in the Big Ten.
Absolutely. He hasn't had to coach every week. That's the difference in the NFL. You got to coach 17 weeks. You have to show up for 17 weeks. Every NFL player that's a rookie or a young guy has to realize that's the shocking part. That's why when you see guys fall off and you see guys struggle, it's because they don't have the mentality that this is 17 weeks. Usually 17 weeks mean you got to the national championships in college. That's like 14. I think it's 14-0, 15-0. But you still got 3 more games to play and then the playoffs if you make it to the playoffs. So to me, I think that's something that Urban said. It was absolutely right. There are 9 players on every NFL team, offensively and defensively, and even on special teams, that are the best of the best. And they're playing, and these are dogs, men that are paid high money that shows up, and they show up for 4 quarters. And you can tell the difference between the teams that show up to play for 4 quarters, and you can tell the teams that don't, because the NFL really will expose your weaknesses. And Urban right now has a chance to really see it, because honestly, Alabama, no one, and I'm an Auburn guy, and I hate to say this shit, but no one holds a candle to Alabama when it comes to their 5-star recruiting and how Nick Saban gets his guys ready to play for every game.
See, Frank's got his teal on today, and I'm a little bit concerned. That's bad juju before Sunday.
Bad juju.
What are you thinking?
You know what? I was drinking more than thinking. I had to say this.
Were you out playing golf today?
I did not get the chance. I was actually at the office, and then I decided to have a little bit of swerve away, a ride around. I had some time to kill in this moment, and I showed up with some cookies and some goodies, and here we are.
Yeah, you did bring me some candy, so I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, this is a Cardinals show, but we don't need to poo-poo on Urban Meyer anymore, because you actually have a soft spot and a really cool story, a connection with Urban Meyer.
Yeah, so I grew up in Illinois, Central Illinois, and my alma mater where I went to school and studied broadcasting was a university called Illinois State University, and coincidentally, it's my hometown, right? And my father was a longtime high school football coach, was mine in the state of Illinois. And he was actually a grad assistant at Illinois State in 1998, the year I was born. And they had a new assistant coach that year, a new position coach. I think he coached receivers, and his name was Urban Meyer. And he didn't have a place to live. And so the head coach at the time went to my father, who's a GA, and my parents were married, and they owned a home. And he said, hey, could this guy come live with you during the season?
Are you kidding me?
No, it's a true story.
He lived in his basement.
And so he moved in our basement, and I was like a newborn for that football season throughout the fall.
Urban Meyer held you and kissed you on the forehead.
I don't know what the hell he did.
Christened
you? I wasn't around, but
Johnny lived with Urban Meyer.
I did,
What?
yeah. Look it up.
What?
It's legitimate.
That is so fly.
And my father, and he kept in touch for a little while. And I was telling Chierstin, our football team did really well my senior year.
You can get us tickets.
No, I can't.
You can get us tickets. He's
probably really pissed right now. He probably doesn't want to hear from anybody. But so yeah, I want to see Urban do well, and I do think that when he was at Ohio State and Florida, his teams would finish better than they started. They would always kind of be in some tight games with the Minnesotas of the world and the Indianas, and then by the end of the year they were humming. That year that they won with Cardell Jones and Zeke,
yep,
they played much better down the stretch. So I do think they'll improve. I just hope it's not this week.
I'm gonna say this I do like Urban, and I think that he's in a good position to learn.
Yeah.
He honestly is one of the coaches who can call another peer who has so much success at the college level. He can call Kliff and find out how to make that transition from the NFL, from college to the NFL.
Probably,
as a successful coach from
Why are
college.
you laughing?
Because Kliff's joke is
does
that
Urban
he was
respect
successful.
Kliff Kingsbury? I don't know.
Successful.
I don't know about that.
Now that I would say I honestly I think that's a great question.
He probably respects Kyler Murray.
You know what? You think that our listeners would probably have a comment on that? Do you think Urban Meyer respects Kliff now that he's the rookie and Kliff has tenure as a coach in the NFL?
I think Urban's like, you son of a bee.
Okay.
If I had Kyler Murray and if I was in Arizona right now, we would be, Super Bowl favorites. I think that he probably believes that. Whether that's true or not,
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, probably.
Look, once
Kliff
you got
Kingsbury
yeah.
was not well thought of in the college ranks,
Very true.
and he was going to be the offensive coordinator for USC, and then bailed on USC. And I know Urban has ties to USC, so he probably doesn't have any love lost for Kliff for doing that. So Kliff has a big target on his back, and I mean, when he was
really
hired
does.
in Arizona, he couldn't put together a defensive staff. Keim got in touch with Vance Joseph, and Kliff was really brought in to just mold and develop Kyler and to get the offense going. And he's developed, and he's much better now, and I hope he has success this year. But, I mean, Urban Meyer is like collegiate royalty, and Kliff was fired by his alma mater. I mean, that's all you need to know.
Jacob, do we have any comments?
No.
Okay.
Shane says Frank looks good in teal.
What's up,
Shane.
Those are trader
You're
colors.
never welcome back in the
Well,
studio again.
Here's the beauty of this color right here. It looks good on me. That's it. That's it. Just looks good on me. That's it. I'm not supporting Jaguars right now. But however, when we get to that moment, I'll tell you what I really feel about the Jacksonville
I know
Jaguars.
how you feel
and
about it.
I will definitely explain. I have tremendous trepidation about this week. And I know there's a question on the table about a trap conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm going to hold that.
How's that for a tease?
That until
there you go.
Okay.
we'll see what's going on.
We are definitely going to get there. But first, there is another interesting head-to-head. So not only two wildly successful former college coaches, but Isaiah Simmons going up against his former teammate at Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. And Isaiah is stoked about getting the chance to possibly tackle Trevor and kind of, get in his way a bit. And he talked about it today at practice.
Yeah, I mean, this is stuff we talk about in college. Like you always talk about, oh, if I played you, this and that would happen, and now it's finally gonna happen. So we're gonna see who gets the better end of the stick. But yeah, it's always fun playing against your friends. It just brings like a different level of competitiveness. I'm gonna try not to talk to him because these refs and these new taunting. I told him, I was like, just messing with him. I said, I was like, throw me a pick or let me get a sack. Just messing with him. And he was like, I got you. But no, me and Trevor are really good friends. Really looking forward to playing against him finally. Outside of being in practice.
Throw me a pick or let me get a sack. That's funny. I mean, that's fun, and it makes the storylines and getting to watch the game a little more interesting.
It does, and I think there's it's a beautiful moment, honestly. Like, so you got to imagine, like, you go from little league to high school to the NFL, college. Excuse me. You go to little league, high school, then you're in the college, and then unless we was in the same high school and same college, state area, you tend to say, I got recruited here, and so now I'm here, and we're both here together. But then we go through this process of 3 years, and you normally can't get into the NFL until after your third year, and then both guys get drafted, and now they have an opportunity to play against each other. That's a real cool moment. But then you start realizing that you're competing against a friend of yours, and the only time you really get to be a friend is pregame warmups. And so you make the initiative to go out, shake hands, hey brother, how you doing? Slap on his back. But when the clock strikes and it's time to go play football, it's all football, and it becomes everything you knew that were weaknesses that you didn't pay attention to when you was in college.
Did you have a moment where you went up against either a former teammate or a friend for the first time, and you were like, "Heck yeah"?
So, funny thing about it was when we played the Jets, and there was this, there was a cornerback that came from a small school that I ended up playing against at the Blue and Gray game. And so at the Blue and Gray game, he was like, "Hey Frank, I really need to be seen. I'm like 5'8". But I'm really fast. I'm really quick." It was the Jets. I can't remember his name right. I apologize for that. But he was the Jets' first-round pick. He came out of a small school, and that's at HBCU. He was the number one. He was a cornerback. But the conversation was, I need to go against you in practice so they can see I can cover big receivers. And I said, okay, bro. I tell you what, when I come up, I'm gonna call you. And I called him out, and I did it 2 or 3 times. And we went out and we practiced, and we went against each other. And he kind of made his plays, and he got a chance to do his thing. And it was really cool. And then when he got drafted by the Jets, and he was a first-round draft pick, and then we went against each other in the pros, that in itself was really cool. I mean, everybody I played against that went out of the SEC, either we had beat my last 2 years in college, we were pretty dominant. We were 10-1-1 my senior year, and we was 11-0 my junior year. And so when you look at those numbers, my last 2 years in college, I was pretty Can I say that? That's pretty spectacular. And then I got drafted and blah blah
You
blah.
can talk about yourself in any way you'd like.
It's hard to do it.
Well, your story is
very hard to do.
Kind of what Trevor Lawrence is going through right now, where you're at the pinnacle of college football royalty, and it's,
Yes.
you know, you're winning national championships and you're competing every year for division titles, and then you get drafted by a franchise that is a perennial loser. I mean, let's
he says perennial, like
let's
number
call
one.
a spade a spade.
You're the number one loser.
And so Trevor's having to deal with that for the first time, I think, like last year or maybe the national championship from 2 years ago was his first loss ever.
Yeah.
And so now he's losing regularly. So what does that do for his psyche? But back to what you suggested with the two standouts, they're part of Clemson royalty. One won the Buckus Award, that being Simmons, and then of course Trevor, Heisman winner, national championship winner, one of the greatest college players of all time. So it's a unique dynamic, especially because Cardinals only play the Jaguars, I think, like every 4 years. They rotate the division. So, you know, hopefully these two get to face each other again as a member of their respective teams, but we don't know. We don't know who's going to be coaching the Cardinals in 4 years. So all that to say, I do think that you can tell they have a close relationship. Both are like extremely intelligent, super high football IQs. And they come from winning programs, and I think that in terms of their talent as well is why we can expect great things at this level. And we're seeing that, especially with Isaiah through 2 weeks.
It makes a difference when you come from a great program that you get a chance to kind of play with elite talent. You get to evaluate yourself in practice. Then you get to see that this is what it's like every week at the NFL level. And then you start having to transition that because you know what it's like. You know what it's like to really start. You know the days and the weeks where you can show up, that you can dominate. And then you know the days and the weeks that you got to come to work. But there is the beauty of being an alumni. There's the beauty of the history of college and the rivalries. And then the NFL's kind of gotten away from that because the rivalries that was created was based upon the players. It wasn't necessarily the cities. And now, right now, it doesn't have that same lore that it had back in the days. But in truth, because players are trading, players are free agents now, and they're changing teams so much. And so, therefore, you don't get to lock in on that. I know for a fact Larry's going to be here for the next 12 years, and he's going to kick somebody's butt. Well, if Larry's contract wasn't signed and Larry might be on an opposing team, he might have been to the Rams, and that could have been a problem. That's historical problems of the past. Now, I mean, it's pretty cool that we get a chance to see how these guys are kind of developing. They're going to develop in front of our eyes. We're going to see Trevor Lawrence develop. We're going to see Isaiah Simmons develop, and then hopefully they can carry some kind of sense of moxie of carrying the NFL torch of saying, you have to play at a high level in order to be at this level. And you can't shortchange the work because it takes 17 weeks. And I think that's all a fan that is invested in the NFL. I'm invested in my team now for 17 weeks. Hopefully that we make the playoffs. I still got preseason games. But in truth, every fan that's invested want to see the coach show up. You want to see the guys that you believe and that you're a fan of to show up every week. And hopefully Isaiah can do that this week versus one of his teammates.
Cardinals are 7.5 favorites on the.
They are on the DraftKings Sportsbook app.
Okay. Can you give us some more insight onto some things within this game that maybe we should bet on?
Yeah, the one that sticks out, like the most egregious one, is Chase Edmonds over under 46.5 rushing yards. He's eclipsed that in both games so far. He had single-digit carries on Sunday against Minnesota, and they got away from the run, and they've got a beat-up offensive line. We talked about the injury report. Kelvin Beacham's out. We don't know about Justin Pugh. I think we're going to see a conservative effort by Kingsbury, not a conservative game plan. I think they're going to run the ball, especially with Kyler Murray taking 3 sacks last game. Jacksonville can't stop, nosebleed. So I think Chase Edmonds is a lock to go over 46.5 yards rushing. I think he's averaging almost 5.5 yards per carry this year. He's been exceptional. He's instant offense when he touches the ball. I think this is going to be a very meat and potatoes. Like Cardinals may not be on SportsCenter for the top play of the week, and that'll disappoint some people, but they need to be able to have a performance that they're just going to assert their will because they have more talent, and we need to keep Kyler Murray clean before week 4 against LA. So that's my bet.
Okay, that's your bet. And as always, though, same game parlays will allow you to combine multiple bets for a bigger payout. That's where you get your money. So This week, if you place the same game parlay in any NFL game, you're going to be credited up to $25 if your bet loses on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. As always, 21 and over, Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And again, the Cardinals are 7.5-point favorites in this game. But Frank, you think it's all trap.
I do. Let me tell you something. I know about the 7.5. I hear that conversation. I remember in 2000, and I only remember this because I looked it up.
Oh, no.
I remember in 2000 when the Arizona Cardinals went to Jacksonville All-Tel Stadium to play the 2000 Jaguars, and we got our butts handed to us. They were just a 5-year removed from expansion team into the NFL since 1995. We thought we can go down and smash them. We thought they didn't have the power that we thought they had. Shit, excuse me. Keenan McCardle, Jimmy Smith, Mark Brunell, Fred Taylor.
This is not that Jaguar team.
Whoop the brakes off us. So let me tell you why, though. Just do this for your own self. Go back and watch the Jacksonville Jaguars in the first quarter of the first game they played. Just do the highlights. And then go back and watch them play the Denver Broncos.
Big improvement.
Big improvement in the first half. They made no mistakes in the first half. Trevor Lawrence looked amazing. In the pocket, he just sat. I think the conversation that he's only been sacked maybe 4 times the entire NFL, the last 2 weeks. That's it. And so the offensive line looked like studs to me. Of course, Denver made second half adjustments, and then they finally got to him, and then he finally started releasing the ball a little earlier than he needed to, and he made mental mistakes. He did that in the first week, the same thing, and it's not easy to make those adjustments because the NFL is not easy. However, from 1 week to the next, I saw a quarterback that sat in the pocket versus the Denver Broncos, Von Miller, and that beast of a defensive line. He sat in the pocket mostly, not even touched. And he had receivers dropping balls throughout the first half. Just go back and watch it and then tell me if I'm wrong. If they don't make that adjustment, then I'd be surprised that they're not ready for the Arizona Cardinals defensive line coming in and ready to play.
So what's your definition of a trap game? Because mine has always been that it's a game that a team thinks should be an easy win and they kind of overlook them. So is that
correct?
Are we talking about the same definition here?
We are, but that only really works in college.
No. Cardinals did that last year.
Trust me. They had no power to believe they were that good. Nothing. There was nothing about the Cardinals last year to prove that they were that good. They can walk in and whoop anybody's ass.
I do think that they, under Kingsbury, they play up and they play down. And so I could see that outside of they just played down to Minnesota. And they had
Did they play down?
Yeah.
Or did Minnesota show up? Because Minnesota showed up.
They had a poor performance. They had a poor performance defensively. I think if they would have treated Minnesota and won the way they did in Week 1 against Tennessee, I think there'd be some truth to what you're saying. The spread would be even bigger than 7.5. Well, they should not have won on Sunday, according to a lot of people. I don't feel that way.
Well, here's the conversation. How about this here? Maybe Tennessee didn't show up when the Cardinals got there, because we thought King Henry won for 1,000 yards in one game, and he did not do it. He only had less than 100, which no one thought they could do it. However, but the following week, they give up 5 sacks. Every NFL team has to show up. And if we go back to that Detroit game from last year, look, the coach isn't a punk. He knows how to create great defensive schemes from the Detroit Lions perspective, and that's all he did. And he showed Kingsbury up from all the great defensive plays, great defensive calls he made last year. So I'm saying, watch it. Just go back and watch Jacksonville's first half.
They're not as bad as public perception. I agree with you.
I'm not worried about the whole team. I'm just watching the young quarterback, because as he goes, they will go.
Sure.
And without his interceptions in the first game of the season, and in the second half of the season, second half of the second game, you will see a different quarterback. You will see a change. He looks really, really good. Just go back and watch the first half of the Denver Broncos.
I think it's good that the Cardinals are playing the Jags.
I agree.
Week 3 than Week 13.
I agree 100%.
And I think that right now there are enough question marks that you feel okay about their chances, better than okay. I think there are Cardinal players that still need to improve, that they can prioritize this week, like a J.J. Watt, some of the other defensive linemen. And what I also just think that, like, you go position by position, it's not close. Outside of, I don't even know what position I would take on Jacksonville over the Cardinals. Maybe it's somebody in their secondary. They took C.J. Henderson last year in the first. He's looked pretty good. Outside of that, every position I would check the box for Arizona.
I agree with you on that. I'm just saying, but what you can't check is the fact that the underdog is showing up.
Right.
And they're telling me that we're the underdogs. But I'm showing you that if you go back and watch the first half of when they showed up for Denver, that offensive line protected the heck out of Trevor. And Trevor made a lot of good throws. Guys are dropping balls. I'm not so. Let me tell you something, folks. He throws the ball down the field. He has no problem. There's no check downs. He's not playing this Jared Goff game where you just can't get the ball down the field. He is letting it ride. He's showing his arm. He's making throws. So to me, and watching the growth of what took place, again, I'm not going to look. Minnesota showed up. They're not a team not to be reckoned with.
Right.
Minnesota showed up to play. Once you saw that
they
Arizona
have better players though.
They do have better players. But I'm telling you, I saw 44-10 in 2000. And they kicked us all across the field. It was a long ride, a long flight. But
well, not to mention last year, the Cardinals got off to a 2-0 start and then lost to the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely happened in recent history. But also, you mentioned C.J. Henderson. He right now is dealing with a groin injury. Mm-hmm. He's questionable for Sunday's game, and they just signed a cornerback to a 1-year deal just in case he's not going to be able to go. So there you go.
They don't have the horses. And if the Cardinals do not turn the ball over, I think Kyler had 3 picks in that Lions game last year. That's why I think they're going to run the ball. I think they're going to be semi-conservative. They want to get out of the game healthy. They want to win no matter the score, and they want to focus on L.A. And I know there are people in that building that are looking ahead to that game, and that's a mistake because of what Chierstin just said happened last year against the Lions, being 2-0 and losing that game. Then they lost the next week to Carolina.
Yep.
So if they want to be perceived as different, then they have to take care of business on Sunday.
I agree.
Although I think the majority of these players are on the injury list, just for more so precautionary reasons, it's worth noting how many players and who is listed. So today, the guys that did not practice are Kelvin Beachum, DeAndre Hopkins, Rodney Hudson, Chandler Jones, Corey Peters, Justin Pugh, and Marco Wilson. And 2 guys were limited. Yeah, I know. And 2 guys were limited. That's A.J. Green and Devon Kennard.
Today's Wednesday?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
They got plans.
Well, that's why I said I feel like
don't worry about
it's most likely precautionary, but it might be. I mean, did anybody hear anything about DeAndre Hopkins' ribs? I mean,
nothing. But don't worry about that. Look. Wednesday in NFL is like Tuesday in NFL, which is a walkthrough kind of practice. It's a revamping of what we did last week to, hey, guess what? We're gonna have to focus on this new team, a new scheme, a new game plan, and these are the new 75 to 125 plays we're getting ready to perform against this team. So,
and everyone except Marco Wilson, they're all veterans too. So it's like you get a little nick, like
the league's pretty.
I feel like
right
specific to Kelvin Beachum because they missed him last week at 100%. I feel like for one more week, you let Justin Murray take that spot. And you get Kelvin Beachum ready for Aaron Donald and the Rams. That's what I would do. I would not rush him back. They have quality depth on the offensive line. They need to play better.
Finally.
I don't worry about the offensive line because Sean Kugler is such a great offensive line coach. So they'll get that remedy. But that was one of the bigger disappointments to me was how they performed on Sunday. I didn't expect that.
Well, I think we all might have called it Kyler Murray, NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Didn't we all say that? Didn't we all predict that?
I think I pushed back just to be different. So, yeah.
Your conversation was you just don't – it would be hard to see him come back again. You said you was 50-50. If he goes for 4 touchdowns and 1 rushing, then 1 out of doubt. But we didn't count the picks because he did throw the picks.
Well, technically better week 1. I know he had less yards week 1, but he didn't have 2 turnovers. He didn't have a pick 6.
He did not.
I didn't expect him to get it.
Turns out you gave an 8 out of 10, and – he should have been graded higher than that, huh?
He should have been graded higher than that. I didn't look. I didn't see him. I didn't think that he could repeat that. Again, that's not saying that he couldn't repeat going 4-1 or 3-1 and then having the picks. It is hard let me just explain that. It's very hard NFL to repeat what you did one week because the other team has studied the film with the intent to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part where you just don't see you being able to you have to take it quarter by quarter by quarter by quarter to see one game, the first quarter of last game, D Hops might get 2 touchdowns, he might get 1 touchdown and 3 catches. But after the second quarter and third quarter, they double team him, and then you can't see him getting the catches, but you see everybody else. But it takes away D Hop's numbers, but it doesn't mean that we're not being successful offensively. So it goes back to Kyler's the same situation with Kyler. What they do in the first half of the game changes immensely from what they do in the second half. That's the beautiful thing about the NFL is that when we go into halftime, it is 100% like NASCAR. We're changing tires, we're changing outfits, we're getting more drugs put in us, we're getting our mindset totally different. We're figuring everything out that we did wrong in the first half because of jitters and figuring out what they do and what they don't do against us. By the time you get into the second half and the fourth quarter, the narrative changes completely. Coaches go into prevent, some don't go into prevent if they're up by 2 touchdowns, and that in the conversation changes. Are we running the ball? Are we not? Are you being conservative, coach? Are we being aggressive how we was the first, second, and third quarter? So to me, I mean, that is always on the table when it comes to, the NFL. And you have to pay attention to that when it comes to if a guy's going to be the NFC player of the week or the NFL, he's going to be MVP, or can he repeat that performance? That's not always easy.
Well, it doesn't matter how teams are able to look at the film from the week before and adjust when you've got a guy like Kyler Murray that's so good in scramble situations. Yeah. And that got brought up today during Kliff Kingsbury's media availability where, somebody asked him, with those off-schedule plays, does that bother Kliff at all that it's not the play that he called necessarily? And he was like, I don't have an ego when it comes to play calling. You thought that was a weird comment to make. But then I followed up and asked him, have you always been that way of just not really having an ego, or was that something that you learned to just set aside over the years? And this was his comment back.
When you coach Johnny football, you just take the wins as you can get them. You don't worry about being on time for meetings or showing up for practice some days. You just get them out there Saturday and let them go and collect the check. So I learned at an early age.
He said collect the check.
You got one like that, just let them go.
Maybe we're seeing a few reasons as to why Johnny Football ended the way Johnny Football did is because he didn't have the...
He was already in the NFL, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
He was already in the NFL. Coach said collect the checks. Look, let me tell you something. There are many times where players, once you win, everything changes. But the second part about it, I'm not saying that he was getting paid. Just know that. I'm just saying that there are scenarios when you...
he was getting paid?
I'm saying.
Kliff said that he was getting his coaching paycheck.
I know, I'm talking about, but I wanted to make sure it was, because he said you just collect the checks. And then Johnny didn't have to come to practice. He didn't have to come to work. Just throw him out there on Saturdays. That's the NFL. Guys might not practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, get on a plane, get there Saturday, rehab, and then Sunday, he's on the injury report the all entire week. But he get there on Sunday, and then he becomes the beast. 4 touchdowns or 5 sacks or 3
Didn't Plexico Burris do that? He never used to practice at all.
Same thing. I mean, Larry practiced very little.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL protects the guys that have veteranship. They do that very well, which I wish I was in this timeline. I probably would have finished with 15 to 25 years. I don't have that now. So, but it just makes the difference on recognizing that. Can my guy show up on Sunday without practicing? Is he mentally prepared for the game battle without necessarily going through the rehearsal? And some guys can do that. And for coach to say that, I thought it was pretty funny. However, I did have the pushback that said, your ego's not on the table? Like, because I'm so talented, your ego's not on the table? Everything about a coach is rehearsed. It's always scripted. You think they got there's probably 200 plays on that big old portfolio that's sitting in front of them. There's 200 plays and everything has a scenario. 1st and 2nd, 1st down, 1st and 10, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 3. Then it goes 3rd and 1, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 20. Then there's 4th down plays. There's actual plays for 4th down. no matter what the distance is. Then there's red zone plays, and then there's like, we need to get first down plays, and there's Hail Marys. So we're going through a ton of scripts. Everything in the NFL is scenarios, and all we practice during the week is scenarios versus the defense of what we've seen them do regarding to what they've proven to be in scenarios. If a team is on 3rd and 10, they tend to become more of a zone defense and not a blitzing. On 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 7, they're more of a blitzing team. And those are just percentages. That's why Vegas is great. That's why Johnny V is pretty amazing at what he does. So he'll tell you guys these facts. He'll give you information that tells you these stats of what a team does. But it's the truth. I'm saying it's not like it's not hard. It's it's exactly what happens in the NFL. I'm giving you facts.
Do you believe Kliff's got an ego?
Well,
100%.
To me, I mean, I'm sure he has a little bit of an ego, but to me, that just sounds like somebody who's admitting, listen, I don't know everything there is to know. I'm not always going to come up with the best play every single time in the situation that's, going to move the chains or, cause us to score a touchdown. So listen, if you want to, improvise or extend a play or use your feet to, create another opportunity, then by all means go for it, because at the end of the day, he's still going to look good for it.
And we talked about this before. He's created a culture in Arizona where players want to play here. And you can't always say that about former Cardinal coaches. I mean, you can't beat Tom Coughlin in 2021. Joe Judge is experiencing that right now in New York.
Yes.
There's a reason Rodney Hudson was traded here and then signed an extension right away.
Correct.
DeAndre Hopkins agreed to an extension right away. So those kind of things speak volumes to, I think, what players believe in Kliff. And yeah, he's not on the elite level, certainly in the division, but I think Monday through Friday, guys like playing for him. It's just, can he get it done on Sundays? So I agree with you. I do think that he's the son of a military sergeant, military family. There's a misconception because good-looking guy, certainly the draft incident 2 years ago, I don't think helps his perception, and he probably regrets that.
Awesome,
no, he loves it.
He loves it.
So
Heck
he
yeah.
loves
Heck
it.
yeah. I would do that right now. I would do it every draft. I do it. I do it from a plane. I do it from a jet.
Well, that tells me that.
Didn't he do it again?
I do it.
Didn't he?
I do it from an air balloon. I do it from Luke Air Force Base on a F-35. Hell yeah. He loved it.
What's your question?
Yeah, he loved it. I feel like he recreated that at some point.
I wear Maverick shirts.
I don't know if it was
Top
again
Gun.
during the draft or whatever the case was, but he, for dang sure,
I would bet he regrets doing that.
He was the one that set that up. That was totally posed.
But now I
Poll
think
it.
based on
Let's figure it out. Poll it. Let's figure it out.
I have our poll results from earlier. We can get to that here in a second. Yeah, over 200 people have voted.
Poll it.
I do think that at the time you probably thought it was a good idea, and then they had the season they had last year and they crumbled down the stretch. And I think it's just maybe for inner coaching circles probably didn't look great.
So also I posted that to Twitter and there were some comments. And again, I mentioned this where a fan's perspective of they just don't think his approach to coaching is going to, resonate or should be the way that a head coach in the National Football League approaches everything. But some people took it as, well, your team's undisciplined, you need to bring up penalties and things like that. And maybe you should, be a little more strict in some regards. And that comment also rubbed some people the wrong way.
Yeah. People look at him and then they see the, issues on Sundays where they're undisciplined in certain areas. And they're like, correlate that because pretty boy football and you live in Paradise Valley and you have this amazing setup and you're single and you're good looking and you got gifted this NFL job and you're not, cut from the same cloth as these other coaches. It doesn't bother me as long as they win. I don't care what he does or how he's perceived publicly. They're putting up W's on Sunday, and that's what will cure it this year. If he gets his team to the playoffs, all that will quiet down.
It does change. The narrative I said before is that you guys we talked about it, and I say this here. Players trust each other. As long as they know the coach got their back, that's a night and day difference. This is not college. The rah, shish, boom, bah. Tell me I got to get up and I'm getting penalized for coming in late. I got to run stadiums and come on, son, win it for the Gipper. Don't get that's over. No, I'm looking.
Gipper?
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm looking at the guy next to me and I'm saying, bro, Did you
Is the guy next to you a Gipper?
No,
What is that?
no, it's
That's
like
a-
that's
that's
an
a-
old saying that was like, you win it for.
Was that for Notre Dame? Maybe.
Yeah, that's like a Notre Dame statement was. That's an old school statement that is used. Like you got to win it beyond yourself. Win it for somebody else.
Okay.
Give your best. Give your hardest. And that was the rah, rah, rah. But in the NFL, guys don't do that. We trust each other. I need to know that JV is showing up, that although he went out and partied and got smashed and hammered, but on Sunday night, he showed up and he balled out.
That's what I do all day before I come to this show.
And guess what? He balls out every time. So that's why we keep him, because we know he is premier, 100% on point, no matter what.
Talent.
When the lights come on, talent is right there.
Talent over work ethic. That's my
look,
MO.
the NFL, that's where we are right now in the NFL. It shows that it doesn't require 4 days, which we did back in the days, 3-a-day practice, what some of you people know 100%. We did consistently up in Flagstaff. We knew that. Now these guys got on shells. They're not necessarily dressed up all the time. Some guys are practicing. Some guys are not practicing. And that's where they are right now. And it's all about what can you do on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday night football when the lights come on. That's the only thing that matters. And that's the only thing that matters to Vegas. That's the only thing that matters to when we're doing what we're supposed to do. And when the betting is really on the table, that's the only thing that matters at that time. Will he show up on Sunday? What does the injury report says right now? We don't worry about that. Sunday, when he hits that field, will he give us 2 touchdowns? Or will he give us 4 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown? Fantasy football is a big conversation right now. And that on the table draws us to what makes the NFL great, because I just need to see my guy show up on that day. And when he shows up, all is right with the world.
Speaking of fantasy football and the DraftKings Sportsbook app, I'm going to bring Johnny back in here for some more sports betting before we move on to the poll. So, is there any more knowledge, additional knowledge you would like to drop on us?
Man, what do you guys think Kyler Murray's prop bets are this week? Do you have a specific prop bet in mind for Kyler Murray? Do you know what that means?
Yeah, I do. I think Kyler.
Okay.
Well, what are they on the app?
Well, I'm going to ask you, what do you think his QB props are this week? For let's go passing touchdowns.
3 touchdowns.
What do you think?
Oh, I think it's more than that. I think it's.
You think it's more than 3 touchdowns?
Wasn't it last week it was 4, no?
Well, that's what he finished with, but the over-under, what do you think the over-under
I
is?
still thought the over-under was 4. I'm still going to go 4.
1.5. 1.5.
Wow.
Wait, so he only has to.
He's got to throw 2.
2.
He's got to throw 2.
And then you win money.
Mm-hmm.
You win money.
On the DraftKings Sportsbook app.
There you go. It's as easy as that.
That's right.
And we all seem to think he will throw 2 touchdowns.
I think he'll throw more.
Maybe they'll all be rushing touchdowns.
That might,
Johnny.
yes. Yeah.
Does-
Well,
does-
that's what I'm saying.
Is there any props on his rushing as well?
I'm sure they do.
Look, I studied and watched Jacksonville. I see the opportunity where there is more than 3 touchdowns. I see it where it's more than 1.5.
Yeah.
I do see that. I just don't think it's a 7.5. I just don't see that.
He is second in the NFL in touchdown passes right now. Who would have thought? And second in passing yards. First in the NFC. Who would have thought that?
Who would have thought? And also, if you want to get in on any of this, sign up on the DraftKings Sportsbook app using the code PHNX. You're going to, after placing just a $1 bet on any game, you're going to get $150 free bets instantly. So go do that. And you had some poll answers.
Oh, so you want to get to the poll results.
Absolutely.
So we posed this to the PHNX Cardinals Nation. Does Urban Meyer respect Kliff Kingsbury? We had over 225 votes in the past 20 minutes.
Whoop, whoop.
75% say no. 25% says yes.
Did I win that?
And some very animated comments in the responses that he will after this weekend.
Okay.
He will by Sunday afternoon. So Cardinal fans shooting their shot that the Cardinals are going to take care of business on the road.
I like that, man. I do. Hop in, man.
I like it.
I look, Urban needs to be humbled.
He does not need to be
He
humbled.
needs to be.
He's being
look,
humbled
just because
right
he
now.
kissed you on the head and spanked your little butt when you was a little kid means nothing to us in Cardinal Nation. Absolutely
So,
not.
Urban, if you're watching, I'm so sorry.
It's
on
okay.
behalf of
It's
Frank.
okay. All I know is
We've got some.
he needs to be humbled because
Chierstin, did
you
get
can't
your
show
read in?
rings in the NFL if you have no rings, brother. Your college rings mean nothing here. Kyler, look, let me tell you something. Kliff has more years, more tenure, and more success. You have none of that right now. So shut up.
Oh,
when
no.
I shake your hand, just acknowledge me and kiss my hand and tell me I'm greater than
Frank.
you and move on. Urban,
Frank.
do your
Urban
part.
was changing
How
times.
how dare you? All right, Jacob. Next segment. We can't go yet.
The
All
next
right.
segment is the mailbag, which again is you, Johnny.
Yes. All these questions are directed at Chierstin. All right.
Love it.
So every week, Twitter.com, we ask you, Cardinal Nation, PHNX Cardinal Nation, what do you want to know about us, about the game? And these are some of our favorites that we pulled today, beginning first with Kliff Kingsbury's hot seat representative. And I'll pose this to you first, Chierstin. Which defense is the one that shows up going forward? So I'm assuming he means week 1, Tennessee, good. Week 2, Minnesota, bad.
Well, I certainly don't think we're going to see the same defense that we saw last week. I think they understand what they needed to fix. I think they're going up against a different team for sure that is honestly not as good as Minnesota's team. And I think the guys, especially the guys up front, are hungry. I mean, J.J. Watt has not gotten a sack yet in the first 2 weeks. And I think that I don't think that that's probably something that he wants. And I think that the defense is going to fix some issues and come out hungry again. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a defense that's closer to week 1 than the week 2.
I see absolutely the same defense, 100%.
As Minnesota? Or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Jacksonville presents problems. Their O-line is strong, and they do block extremely well. Jacksonville has players that can go out and make plays. They have them. They have young talent, and they have a lot of guys in skill position that could literally cause problems for us. When you watch, go back and watch the first part. I see my defense right now. I'm hoping that we make some adjustments and that we get somebody to step down, and our defense starts looking like a 5-2 instead of a solid 3-4 or 4-3, where we can threaten to blitz more and then drop back. But I'm still sold that this team right here presents problems, and the only other reason why is because the quarterback really can run. He's a 4-4 guy. He's sick, and he has all the throws, so he can create problems. He can scramble out of the pocket, and he can get up the field just as well as, not as cute as Kyler, but it's damn sure a possibility where he can create problems for and get himself out of situations where he's not getting sacked.
All right. Now just after you said that,
Beep, beep, beep,
I am
beep, beep, beep.
hoping.
This is just in breaking news.
Yes, breaking news. I now hope that Trevor Lawrence spends the majority of the game on his back, just because you said that, because I think that they're going to bring the pressure and they're going to be closer to where they were week 1.
I like that.
The defense has the large majority of the assets on this team that they've invested in. 2 first-round linebackers past 2 years, J.J. Watt. You know, the secondary's got a bunch of, high-profile guys, Budda Baker. So I would be disappointed if we saw that kind of effort again, but not out of the realm of possibility. All right, next question. This is from Jared at PHXHXC. Almost thought that was PHNX.
I thought that was
at Twitter.
I thought you was going that route.
Jared asks, can this offense succeed at all if Kyler is limited to only throwing from the pocket? Chierstin, what do you think?
Well, I certainly think they can succeed, but Kyler's a dynamic quarterback, and that's what makes him so good. That's why he is the starting quarterback for the Cardinals and was drafted with the number 1 overall pick. Now, does he want to be more of a pocket passer? Yes, and he's certainly shown that he's capable of being that this year. But, we've talked about his ability to run and then also to extend plays, scramble situations, evade defenders. I mean, yes, but why would you want that? Kyler is so much more than just that.
And that's why he was picked first overall. Absolutely, Frank.
I would touch bases on technique wise that if Kyler cannot run, excuse me, y'all, if he cannot run, but he's limited, then I'm gonna have to see the adjustments from Kliff Kingsbury. I'm gonna have to see him leave Matt Williams in. I'm gonna have to see him go from a 4 wide receiver set to a 3 receiver set, bring a tight end, maybe go double tights and add more to the line to protect guys. Put more emphasis on Connor, who's supposed to be a beast of a running back, but maybe he can block because he can learn how to come in and actually protect the quarterback. If that's the case, you will eliminate the blitzes and the stuff that has to happen, which would mean he can sit in the pocket a little bit more. But when you go 4 and 5 wide receivers, you open yourself up to a numbers game. Their 6 is more than our 5. and that becomes a problem sometimes when it comes to offensive line, and sometimes other teams are blitzing against us. If they protect him, if Kliff is willing to make those adjustments, then absolutely yes.
I think he's running to throw this year. I think last year it was more eyes downfield. Maybe the first read wasn't open and he'd take off.
Right.
He and you've seen it 2 weeks in a row, like 20, 25 rushing yards. That's who he wants to be. He wants to be Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, uses athleticism when necessary, but stand in the pocket and throw darts. So I'm with you, Chief.
I still like what he's able to do in the pocket breaks down. I mean, that to me, what we've seen in the first 2 weeks, that to me is the most exciting part of what we've seen from him since he's been, an Arizona Cardinal.
That bomb to Rondale Moore, both tackles whiffed on their edge rushers. He was forced outside. He could have taken off for 10 yards. He could have thrown underneath, and he let it rip downfield. And so that just shows you his growth and development as a passer. So hopefully that's going to be the difference this year if he can continue to do that. Great question. All right, next up. This is from Finn at Finn_Staples32. When is Zach Allen going to show signs of development and an ability to consistently make his presence known in the interior? And I think this is the bigger question. In truth, that can be asked of all of our interior defensive linemen. So the defensive lineman is one of the more disappointing units, really, since Calais Campbell left. Why is that, and what do they need to do to get better?
Well, I think it's been a combination of players not staying healthy and players not living up to their expectations. In terms of Zach Allen, I think he has showed a lot of improvement, and, just going off of camp, some of my early observations, especially with J.J. Watt, was there was one guy that he was coaching up the most, was most responsive toward, was most excited for when he did something well, and that was Zach Allen. He's really taken him under his wing. Zach worked really hard in the offseason along with some other, some of his other guys. And so I know for a fact that he has made strides. And one thing that's really going to get him there is just stay attached to J.J. Watt. Continue to learn from him, do what he says. I think he was even, asking him about like what he does in the off season and working out and things like that. I mean, as much access as you can get to J.J. Watt, take full advantage of that, and he's going to get there.
Statistically, when you have two beasts on the outside, you would think they would double more on the outside. But that's how Chandler gets his sacks, because they don't double on the outside. They're still having to press and push. Interior linemen, offensive linemen are still having to press and push from the inside and then push outside, hoping that we can get the ball out in enough time before Chandler Jones or J.J. Watts gets the sack. And that's all timing. So our interior linemen should receive the benefits of having two beasts in J.J. and C.J. That would be nice. We haven't seen that yet. So hopefully over the course of the season, we'll see these guys have more one-on-one matchups, and then they will be able to dominate. And if they can't, then that would be the exposure of our offensive line.
There were huge holes in the Minnesota running game on Sunday, and that was really alarming. And they run Minnesota that same zone concept that the LA Rams do, that have given Vance Joseph fits. Same with Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco. I think what's difficult is you go from Antonio Smith and Darnell Dockett and Calais Campbell to this kind of, lapse of talent. And they've tried over a number of off seasons. I mean, Jordan Phillips was supposed to be that guy, TBD on J.J. Watt, who's in his 30s now. I go back to, they liked Quinnen Williams the year they took Kyler Murray. They liked Derek Brown, who went right before Isaiah Simmons. It's a position that they're going to continue to flood. But you're right. They don't have that quintessential, premier defensive lineman, that disruptor that can pressure quarterbacks from the interior. And so hopefully it's one of the guys on the roster. Otherwise, they're going to have to try again. So, All right, last question. This is a great Twitter handle, K1/Booker season at Fitzgerald_Gulp.
Covered them all, didn't he?
More of a Valley Twitter handle than that. He asks, are you concerned with the massive contract Kyler's about to get and how that potentially can limit the team in signing good talent to keep around him?
I'm not. I think that there is a process in the NFL where every year you'll see this every year, the money continually goes up and TV revenues keep pushing it. So therefore, whatever the quarterback is making, and right now we're on the precipice of that. They're making almost $42 million a year, averaging about 37 with the top 10 quarterbacks. And if you're a franchise quarterback, you're already you're already 33 to $37 million. So that in itself has already been allocated money that's put aside for a quarterback in the NFL. And as the money keeps going, then you're going to see that they still haven't stopped the process of being able to pay for 2 bookend wide receivers. The O-line requires a certain amount of money. You have defensive end guys, cornerbacks. Those are typically where your big bucks are going at. So it would be understood and accepted amongst the team, as well as the players that will come here or the players that will leave, based upon the fact that they want to still play with Kyler Murray.
Mhm.
And if you know you got an opportunity to win championships, they're still going to be here, or at least they know they have a chance to compete for championships. So I don't see it being that big of a deal.
Yeah, I don't. If everything that you say happens, and if Kyler really makes a big step in this 3rd year and is truly deserving of some sort of mega deal, I would say, all of what you just said will happen, and it shouldn't be a concern. And I always tend to, go with, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and just kind of see what the situation and the numbers are, when we kind of get there. But I'm not worried about it. And hopefully he's deserved. Like, what I really want to see is, him prove that he's worth that kind of money this year.
I would agree. I think the ownership then becomes Steve Keim, whomever's the GM, has to draft and develop talent, cheap talent in the draft. And you've got to find more Rondale Moores that you're paying no money to, so you can allow Christian Kirk to hit the market. Because when that doesn't happen, then your roster's full of holes, and it becomes Kyler Murray and just a bunch of average players, right? And you want to see him elevate those guys, but they have to do a better job drafting for them to be able to pay him. I mean, look, right now via overthecap.com, his cap hit this year is $9 million.
That's nothing.
Josh Allen's cap hit, when it kicks in, his extension, which will probably be close to what Kyler gets. Kyler will probably get a little bit more because of inflation. His cap hit in 2 years is almost $40 million. Yep. That's what Kyler's going to be living in, assuming that they have the season that they want to have. I still think Michael Bidwell is going to pay him generational wealth regardless of how the season goes, because he is so special, and they've never drafted and developed a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, if you will, with all due respect to Jake Plummer. So I think 40, 45 million per season is what he's looking at.
I would hope that you've got some sort of an effect, and I'm drawing a comparison to the Sun. So you've got a guy like Devin Booker that Chris Paul wants to play with. Yeah. And now Chris Paul comes to Phoenix, and they're like, okay, we're missing another piece. Hey, we're going to call up Jay Crowder. Jay, we think you're the last ingredient to this cake that we're baking right now here in Phoenix, and it's going to be something special. Yep. Okay, I'm taking my talents to Phoenix. Let's go do this.
That's a great point.
Hope that there's a situation. What are you laughing at?
Because the situation you're hoping is, it is to be hoped from where we're sitting at. When free agency hits the table and your money is on the line, Kliff Kingsbury might not be here because of free agency. Once his contract's up, somebody else will say,
he'll be here. Get out of here.
Okay.
Kliff will take the Cardinals'
I'm
money.
just saying there are other ways. There are other ways to deal with like the money situation, where maybe you don't have to solely rely on guys that you're drafting. I mean, it's a mixture of guys that you're drafting and some veterans that will come in and say, I want to play for that team because I think we can win a championship.
I agree with you until you realize that the team I can play for a championship is, I'm getting $17 million. But then I can go to a team that I'm not going to really play for a championship.
You have to emulate.
I can get $22 million.
So the divisional comparison is Russell Wilson, who's making $40+ million.
Yes.
And they drafted Tyler Lockett, and I think they're just now starting to pay him, and DK Metcalf's making no money. That's what you have to do. And then you can supplement players elsewhere. But that means they cannot splurge in free agency. They probably got one more free agency period like they've had, where they can go out and they can sign a J.J. Watt or trade for Chandler Jones, trade for DeAndre Hopkins, extend whomever, get an A.J. Green. They probably got one more left this spring, and then that's it.
So you don't think there is a team in the NFL that's got, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
They got a
not
bunch.
even?
That's an outlier.
No, I'm saying, but look at the Tampa Buccaneers. They got a bunch of older players that they put together that's willing to take.
That's what I just said.
No, but what you're saying it, but That's the GOAT.
Brady also takes less money.
I
too.
will leave this chair to go play with Tom Brady.
Kyler needs a
and
Giselle
15 other guys
that
in the
makes
league.
a European
out.
model.
I'm out.
See, he needs a Booker, or he needs a Kendall Jenner who makes more money than Devin Booker. Giselle makes more money than Tom. We need to get Kyler hooked up with just like a European entrepreneur that can supplement his income, so he can make like only $15 million a year, so they can sign players.
He will never do it because the NFL and our collective bargaining agreement will not allow a number one quarterback to take
That's true.
less than what he's worth. He's worth that much. Ryan Tannehill was in the league before he got his money. He sucked. I got 15 other guys I can name that was in the NFL before they got their money, and they sucked. Nick Foles sucked for many years, and he's still getting paid, and he's still in the league like, I'm worthy of it. You ain't finished a season, mofo, so shut up. I mean, you ain't even started the season finishing, so that's the conversation we can have. When the money hits the table, we talked about the other day with Christian Kirk, and Christian Kirk might not even be here because of the money on the table. Are you going to still play D-Hop's? D-Hop's contract's only going to escalate. Every year in the NFL, no matter what your contract says, you're supposed to get a 10% plus increase. It doesn't change. You go from a 1 million, the next year you got to get $1 million, $1 million 10, or $1 million 1.1. Well, but it's never 1.1. It goes up to like 1 point. It goes to 2.9.
That's why this season's so important. Then
it is important
this
for these
season
guys
and
to
probably
take advantage
next
of this moment
season
right now.
because you have a window where you can win a Super Bowl, and that's what the Kansas City Chiefs have done with Patrick Mahomes. The Cardinals they're trying to follow that blueprint. That's why J.J. Watt's here. And that's why it's disappointing when he doesn't do anything the first 2 weeks. You're paying him big money. Kyler Murray's making $9 million. Kyler Murray, who's going to be in the running for MVP this season, should have been back-to-back Offensive Player of the Week in the NFC. $9 million.
I'm going to slide this little conversation in. I don't care if J.J. Watt doesn't get a sack at all. You're paying $19 million to get double-teamed. Suck it up.
Now,
you're paying him $19 million. If he's getting double-teamed, that means everybody else is flying free.
Chandler Jones was getting sacks before J.J. Watt came in.
But he was getting it with.
Then they can't be that poor defensively against the run then. That's fine, and it flew in week 1 because they shut down Tennessee's offense.
We still got young linebackers. So, I mean, again, Minnesota's pretty
Jordan Hicks played every snap last week.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I can't argue with you on that.
They got to be better. We both agree they got to be better defensively.
Right.
Not good enough.
Johnny Facts is right.
Not good enough.
All right, before we get out of here, I want to tell you guys about a deal we've got going on for our members in honor of the Cardinals getting off to a 2-0 start. We are celebrating by giving PHNX members 20% off of all Cardinals gear. You see 2 of our awesome Cardinals-themed T-shirts, which Johnny and I were talking about.
We love them.
Before the show. We absolutely love them. And if you become a member, you're also going to get access to exclusive content on our website, all of Johnny's wonderful articles, access to our members-only Discord, and then one more note. If you're not, why would you not be subscribed and follow to us by now?
What are you doing? What the hell is going on?
Hello.
But we stream on YouTube, so subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, and then follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, PHNX_sports. And we'll see you Friday.